Hello, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're talking about why you're not giving yourself enough time. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I think it's very common when people try acupuncture that they are going to one appointment and then seeing how they feel, and then booking next week's, and then seeing how they feel and booking next week's appointment. I think that this is a flawed process. And so I want to get into why I think this. And then later in the episode, I'll talk about how I've set up my offerings to really support people through this process. Okay, so the first part of it is, why is it even important to talk about? The public knows very, very little about Chinese medicine in general. And of course, they don't know very much about Chinese medicine. It's not part of our culture. And so my point is that I think it's our role as acupuncturists to really guide their experiences and guide their expectations. Now, this to me does not mean there is a set treatment plan for everyone. I don't really believe in treatment plans. I think that you have to treat the person the way they are the day that you see them. And I think when you're offering really deep treatments like the complement channels do, like classical medicine does, you can expect to have very deep changes on a week to week basis. But when a patient starts feeling different, in my experience, drastically different, is between 4 and 6 weeks. And the reason I say this is both from personal experience, being a patient of the medicine, and also what I see in the patients that I have personally treated. And I think that this is because it is at the halfway mark of the deepest change that you can make. So Chinese medicine refers to energy at superficial levels all the way to the deep level. So this would be Wei Qi is what we call our most superficial level of Qi, all the way down to Yuan Qi. And this can be inherited issues that we have, really deeply ingrained patterns, and all kinds of things can happen at different levels of energy. But to change that really deep rooted energy, it takes about 3 months. So I think that the best way to guide patients to understanding what to expect on their journey in their process is to set them up to expect 6 treatments. Then let's reevaluate. Do you need to decrease the frequency with which you come in? Let's move to every 2 weeks. Or do we want to go to every month? But the reason that I'm thinking about this is because when people just come one time and they try it, they see how they feel, then they make another appointment, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of like going to a gym and doing a workout and thinking, oh, I had a really fun time. And shouldn't I just like now be shredded? Shouldn't I have like huge muscles, be able to move lots of weight? I've changed my body composition. Of course not. It doesn't matter whether you enjoyed the first session or not at your gym. You know that you're going to have to repeat that many times and be consistent over time in order to get a change. Now, this is an approximation. I do not believe that there is a set expectation for how long it takes to get well. I'm always holding open the door for the possibility that a person needs one treatment. And I have had that happen a precious few times in my experience. So I've just come to the understanding after practicing for a bit that people do need time. The biggest reason they need the time is because they've got a shift. We're looking at how everything before the day that you come in with your complaint, whatever it may be, has contributed to that complaint. And if we are going to rewind that disease process, it is not only going to be you coming in and lying on the table and me putting needles in you, but it's also going to be you reflecting on the things that got you to this place. What was happening when these in your life when these symptoms came up? What was going on before that? What are the patterns in your mind, in your health habits, certainly in your diet? These things will influence your path going forward. And so it takes time to change that. I mean, I think it's very rare that people can just cold turkey anything. And I think that's even more difficult when it's not stopping something, but it's changing, it's shifting, and it's starting new patterns. So I like to work with people for 6 weeks on a weekly basis because I tend to mostly get chronic disease processes in my practice. And I have never seen a chronic disease that started out not as a very deeply rooted issue. And so, in my experience, when we treat that deepest level, like I mentioned before, the Yuan level, these are generally 8 extraordinary treatments, and we do them weekly. They're not advised to do more frequently than that in most cases. we see really profound change. And usually between 4 and 6 weeks, the pulse will shift and show me something different, which is usually that depletion that I talk about a lot. We can then see what medium needs more support, and then we work there. But in my experience, again, both as a patient and as a practitioner, I've seen that until we work that most deep layer that is presenting itself, we can't fully affect the medium. And again, if you're new to acupuncture, new to Chinese medicine, please take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because there's never a never or an always in Chinese medicine. Okay, so it doesn't mean that someone with chronic disease couldn't come in and have one treatment and be golden. And honestly, that would be the most wonderful thing if that could happen in my practice consistently. I would love to see people with years of problems, it just evaporate after one session. I have seen pretty incredible things, but I have never quite seen that yet. And again, I think it's because of what I was talking about before. It really is a process, and that is not meant to diminish people's efforts or their ability to change their resilience, any of that. It's just that it takes us all time as humans to change our mind, to change our patterns, to figure out how are we going to eat differently? How are we going to essentially meal prep and prepare to embark on this new experience, which is becoming a new person that no longer has the back pain or the knee pain or the migraines or the fatigue, or the anxiety. We are going to become a new person in this process. And that's how I'm thinking about it. And I think the best way that we do that is to really set the expectation that it is going to be a journey. And as we make small changes in our lives, in our personal lives, as we're coming in for treatment on a weekly basis, I think we're going to really end up with pretty spectacular outcomes. I have had a patient work with me consistently every 2 weeks because that's what her schedule allowed. And I found that to be very, very helpful for her. She found that to be very helpful. So I'm not saying that it absolutely 100% of the time has to be weekly treatments. But again, I think if we go back to the thought process of how am I committing to becoming a new version of myself that does not have this problem, I think it's very wise and very prudent to dedicate a session each week and dedicate time outside of those sessions to start making small changes on a daily basis. And as a part of the Get Started package, I give you a journal because I want you to start jotting down your thoughts first thing in the morning. This was something that my teacher told us in our mentorship, and I just thought it was really revolutionary. And now I don't always write it down, but in the morning, first thing I do when I open my eyes, I pay attention to my thoughts. I'm tracking, and I'm looking up as I'm saying this in case you're listening to me and not watching me, but I look at it like it's a ticker. I'm watching my mind. What are the thoughts that are going through my mind? Is it, shit, I'm already waking up late and I'm behind, or is it, I got to do this thing? Or is it, wow, thank God I have a roof over my head and I'm sleeping in a comfortable bed. And I hear my kid upstairs. Thank goodness she woke up this morning. And I'm so grateful that I have the most amazing husband ever, right? When you start tracking your thoughts, then you can be the observer of your mind rather than your mind being the controller of you. And the mind is a sneaky little bastard. And that is why I like for you to write down your thoughts, start observing them, see what's going through your mind so that, again, you can be the one that plants the thoughts that you want to have versus your mind running the show, because we definitely do not want that to be the case. Also, in the Get Started package, I send you a cookbook of recipes to help you think about how to start shifting your meals away from grilled, dry meats with a raw, cold salad. These are common ways of eating in America, right? So we are all steeped in this tradition, and now I'm trying to help you shift to warm, cooked foods because this supports your digestion and it supports your body being able to build energy and build mediumship. And we get into more of those details as we work together. And then I also give you an eating out guide that just helps you look at 4 different chain restaurants. And if you find yourself in that situation, eating on the go, eating on the run, what should you pick? I'm not suggesting that anyone go out and eat Chick-fil-A. I think it's pretty terrible food. However, If Chick-fil-A is your only option, what should you pick to most support your health in that moment? Because it does happen, okay? And then along with the first thing I mentioned, the journal that I give you, I do have a daily checklist of very, very small things. And at one point, I had a blog called Occasionally Every Day. And the reason it was called Occasionally Every Day is because of this funny story. This person that I knew who was a physician, and he would talk about when he asked his patients, "How often do you drink alcohol?" They would say, "Occasionally." And he would say, "Occasionally every day." And they always thought this was so funny. I thought it was funny. And so I adopted this as my business name for a while, because what I'm getting at is our health is not built or destroyed in a day or with one meal or one drink, but it is the small daily habits that will make or break us. So you have coffee every morning. It's just one cup. It is one cup every morning that is draining you. It's depleting you. It's depriving you of the resources that your body could be building for you. And it is not a good habit, right? So when we start tracking those little habits, oh, it's just one this, it's just one thing here, it's just this, right? Those things all add up. The compound effect is true for money as well as our daily habits. And this daily checklist is just a checklist of very, very simple things. They're simple to do, but they're also simple not to do. And I just encourage you to use the checklist to start thinking about your daily habits and picking one thing at a time. This week, I'm going to work on drinking warm water first thing in the morning when I wake up. Next week, I'm going to habit stack. And in addition to drinking warm water, I'm going to stretch for 5 minutes when I get out of bed in the morning or 5 minutes before I go to bed at night. The third week, I'm going to drink warm water in the morning. I'm going to stretch for 5 minutes. And I'm going to spend 5 minutes writing in my journal. What are my thoughts? What am I thinking about? These things can be devastatingly positive if you allow them. If you come and work with me and you want to get on board, I will be your biggest cheerleader. And this is what the Get Started package is designed for, to really get you going. And then after those 6 weeks, we're looking at, what do you need from here? Do you need to keep coming every week? That could absolutely be possible. In my experience, people start to be able to taper and come every 2 weeks. And then, like I mentioned before, then they're once a month. And then hopefully you don't need me. That is always my goal. But the more you can do at home and outside of the treatments with me, the better your results will be. And so your work with me in my office every week, in addition to these resources that I'm giving you, is designed to really help you give yourself enough time so that you can get the result that you want. If we give it 6 weeks and you're coming on a weekly basis, that puts us at about half of 3 months' time, right? So at that point, you can really see, how much progress have I made? Do I need to keep working with MG? Is this not working for me at all? I will tell you that I have never had someone work with me for 6 weeks on a weekly basis and not be in a completely different place at the end of those 6 weeks. Even the people who do not listen to my diet and lifestyle recommendations, they still get better when they come on a weekly basis for 6 weeks. Now, when I have had people come to me for 3 weeks in a row and say, "I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do outside of this treatment room," that's fine. That's totally fine. But usually what happens is their progress is so slow or not noticeable enough that then they don't come back. And so then they just abort their whole process, if that makes sense. So you're coming to me for 3 weeks in a row, and then you're not doing any of the things I'm asking you to do. You're not drinking warm water in the morning. You don't eat warm, wet food. You're not willing to give up coffee, all the other things. And you don't really notice your progress. Maybe you're a little better, but also maybe you're on the cusp. I don't know if you've ever seen that graphic where someone is under the earth and they're digging to get toward the diamond or the gem, whatever it is, and they're getting really, really close, but they can't see that on the other side, just a mere inch away, the diamond is right on the other side of that dirt. That's how I think about this process. You never know when you're almost there. And I think if you cut it short, and also if you're not a willing participant, if you're not willing to do the things that I'm recommending for you based on what classical Chinese medicine tells us, then I think it's just not a very engaged process, and I don't think you should expect to see results. I think it would be wonderful if you could, but in my experience, again, both personal, like as a person who has used this medicine many, many times, and as a practitioner of the medicine, what I have seen that is that it needs a very concerted effort and it needs a consistent effort. Again, if we go back to the first examples that I gave of going to an esthetician to improve your skin and or going to the gym, neither one of those things are going to work if you don't work it consistently. I think it's the phrase that a lot of direct sales companies use. You can work whenever you want to or how you want to, but you do have to do the work. So you do have to make the changes in your lifestyle and you do have to come in for treatments on a regular basis. And that can be a really big undertaking. And again, I've been through it, so I know. I know it is asking a lot to like get up in the morning and cook warm food or like program your instant pot the night before. I absolutely understand that. But if we are looking at any disease state that we are in as a culmination of all the things that we have experienced in our lives, the habits that we have, the habits that we don't have, whatever the case may be, it's all adding up to get us to the current state of affairs. Then we have to look at it like, will coming in for acupuncture treatments alone get me to healing? Or is it going to also, in addition, require me to unwind those habits and create a nearly new version of myself? So I want to give you an example of someone that I worked with just last year. She came to me with essentially frozen shoulder. She couldn't lift her arm. I mean, she couldn't do this, right? Like she could barely get it away from her side. And this had been like a chronic degenerative process. It was just getting worse and worse and worse over the years. And this was the mother of a friend of mine. So she came in, and this is going to be a little bit of jargon, but I used a sinew treatment to release trapped energy in her shoulder. Okay, so just to go into that just a bit, before I mentioned to you that the deepest level of energy takes 100 days to shift according to the classical text. So we're looking at the body, interior to exterior. When I mentioned the deepest level, what I was talking about was most interior. This person came in with a shoulder that could not move. And this is the case for many people that have like orthopedic type problems, range of motion problems. In many cases, they will have a problem of the most exterior, and that's called the sinew channels. So sinew channels are, as I mentioned, most exterior. And so oftentimes energy will get trapped in this layer, and we assess what channels need to be used by movement. So if they can move in one way and not the other, that tells us we use that channel, and so on and so forth. But she could not move at all. So it was like a full starting from the most interior of the exterior layer and working outward. At the end of that treatment that I literally worked on her the entire time, she could move her arm. She had pretty much full range of motion. Still a little bit uncomfortable, right? I'm not alarmed by that at all. I think that is amazing that you can get that kind of work and that kind of result in an hour treatment. She came back the next week. We repeated it. She was pretty much golden, 100%, she would call it, right? So then I didn't see her after that. And I thought, wonderful, she's doing great. Then I run into my friend and she mentioned that her mom's shoulder was really giving her such a hard time, that she couldn't do this and that for herself. And she was having to help her, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, what? This was part of the reason that I now do this 6-week package, because the most exterior layer was clear. She could move her arm. She had full range of motion. However, the deeper level of energy also needs support. It was also affected. And the fact that 2 treatments did not leave her golden forever, essentially, tells me that she needed deeper work. In her mind, I'm speaking for her. I don't know this for sure. But in my mind, what I'm thinking when a patient has this kind of experience is they're leaving thinking maybe one of 2 things. See, I just knew that my shoulder was going to be like this for the rest of my life. See, there's nothing that can help me. I can't really heal. I'm just going to have to live with this. And how am I going to live with this? I can't put my own bed sheets on the bed, and I can't like do yard work, and I can't put something above my head in the cabinet. See, it's just going to be like this forever. So there's mindset at work too. And then the second thing that worries me about this is that they left thinking, well, see, that person doesn't know what she's doing, or Chinese medicine doesn't work. Acupuncture is just a sham. Neither of those things are true. But if she would have been coming back to me, I think her pulse would have shown me that she needed attention at the deeper level. So she spent the time and money, and sinew treatments are not the most comfortable treatments either. So she went through the treatments and had full range of motion in 2 weeks, which is pretty miraculous if I do say so myself. But then all that became a waste because she didn't come back. And so for me, this was a humongous wake up call where I was like, whoa, we have got to do something different. The general public does not know about acupuncture, does not know about Chinese medicine, as again, they should not. Why would they have known? But it is my job to set the expectation, set the tone, and also set the time in my schedule. I personally, as a patient, have had the situation where I was getting care from a colleague in New Mexico. He was very busy, and I could not get back in with him. And I knew that I needed weekly treatments for a period of time, a minimum of 6 weeks, I would have said at the time. And I couldn't get in. So therefore, when I would go, in my opinion, I did not feel that that was a worthwhile use of my time and money because I couldn't follow up to continue the treatment. Now, I love to talk about how one treatment can be all a patient ever needs. It can be all that I ever need. I also personally, because I know the channels, meditate on them as well when I need them. And I find that to be very effective in many cases, but I don't always find it to be enough. That is also a topic of another episode. However, what I'm trying to say is the reason I have structured the Get Started package the way I have is because those 6 weeks are taking you halfway to what the classic texts tell us to expect when we are changing the deepest level of energy. Now, if you are top notch golden at 6 weeks, I could not be more thrilled. My goal is always to work myself out of a job, but my goal is also to work and work with you. So if I don't structure your expectations to know that when you start with me, expect to come every week for 6 weeks, and then let's reevaluate how you're doing. At that point, then we could go to every 2 weeks. Then we could space it out to once a month, right? We start spacing it out, but to make sure that your body is still really supported so that you hold those results long term. And then you don't see me anymore. That is always my goal.